Hi and welcome to today's program. We are here at Institute for X to cover an exciting workshop about tools for change. So we're going to talk about connection with ourselves, with the community, about activism and honoring our pain. Follow us. And why is it important to be in touch with oneself while we are fighting for make changes in our societies and communities?
Because I believe what we need to have is a deep and systemic change, and not just like patches or washes or something that is just perpetuating the problems that we already have. And for this deep and systemic change to happen, I think it just really requires to also connect emotionally to what it is that we are experiencing, because you can tell people all you want to, I don't know, not throw trash here and there, but if you don't really connect it to this level that it's about the earth that we're living on, and it actually does something not just to someone else or something else, but to yourself, because we are part of this interconnected living web. That's where the emotional part comes for me in very strong, because it really creates this drive and the fire, as one of the participants was saying today, to then go out and do something.
And this is also related to the gratitude and the honoring the pain that you were talking about.
Yeah, and that comes from the teachings of the work of Reconnect's work. And as I was also saying in the workshop, both of these, I think, are in themselves tools for change, like radical, subversive practices. If you think about gratitude, it's a way of really going against the consumerist system that always says that we are not enough, you don't have enough, you are not enough, and really like going out of these external circumstances and saying, okay, but this is what I'm grateful for, and this is resourcing me to then do something. And the same or similar with the honoring the pain part, that it's also something that is not normalized to actually talk about your feelings of what it means for you to see the climate changing, or to see certain groups of people being systemically and for centuries oppressed, that it creates certain feeling both in the body and physical body and emotional body. And acknowledging that, I think that brings a possibility for this deeper systemic change that I think the people in the room are also longing for.
Just simply like conference with people, because this is a tool, you can do a lot of spend a lot of time with people.
Could you ask some people to talk with you also? Or? Out with the participants after the workshop, or can
But it's not yet, so I would appreciate it.
then you tell me. It's also what's coming up, and I actually really like these, more like for you in your collective or with the people who you do certain activist work with. Yeah, so you talk from the and struggles with confidence and taking up too much space, and this, there's things happening in Denmark. Is it in January? This year, actually, yeah. And like this peak of pandemic tiredness and mental exhaustion and all of this, and that this kind of gave this ability to actually meet. We've done it already a couple of times today, so it's like a reflection circle of if you want to bring something into the the center of your learnings or takeaways or reflections on this last process, this honoring our pain for the world, and the sharing, remembering that it's not about the details, but more like how was your experience with this? How did it feel apart from too short? Which it probably was, I'm guessing.
I learn very much about my colleagues' perspective in the group, and it really opened my awareness about things and pains, common pains.
It was funny because I think in my group we basically had very similar or maybe the same answers for all the questions. But also the last question, what I hope can happen for us in this work, and this first question, what concerns me, is like the same. So what concerns me is like what I hope it changes and what I hope it can. So it's a paradox of things.
I really like the concept about honoring the pain and talking with other people about it, because almost always you can understand the other person's perspective. We shared quite a lot of perspectives, and that is just so nice to hear that other people are seeing the same problems as you, and that you can follow what they are saying, and that kind of gives you hope. The honoring part is quite positive for me, actually. So I have something that hurts and then turning it into something that you get a nice feeling from talking about.
I didn't see who was first. I see you all.
I can go. I thought it was very touching. Also, recently I started as a chef with the group, connecting to these issues emotionally, with the help of you. And I just think it's really heavy, and I feel my heart beating, and it's nice to. I also find it nurturing to share the stories and know that it's not just me feeling these things, and that activities such as this is happening. Brings me hope.
Thank you.
Through going through the concerns of the others in my group, I found the new concerns for me. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's quite good. So it makes me more aware of maybe things I was not seeing. Maybe because of my privileges. So it's great to share what others are worried about. At least for me, I feel that then I could be better because I was so Texas concerned. This is worse. Yeah. I get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just I'm very grateful for this and the space, and my dream is that this would just be a thing that's happening like all day, every day, for people to come together and just share and have conversations for change, because I think that it really is, it's crazy how we can walk around individually thinking that maybe what we're going through is just ours, but really I think when we come together and we start talking about the things is when we realize that it's collective, and that's only when we come together that we can actually make change happen. So, yeah, thank you.
I appreciate a lot that we are sharing and exchanging opinions, because even if we share a lot of common concerns, hearing how people put them in different words and bring different nuances makes it very rich and opens also other lenses for me to look at the same fear but from a different perspective. So that feels really enriching,
And so that's where I join also Signe with this third question, what I find hard in my, and on the feelings that come up, that there is this first maybe anxiety or sadness and all of that, but that also is nurturing for something empowering that comes up. And that was the thing I noticed in my feelings, that they were categorized, most of them, as something that is heavy or dark, that actually I also feel this fire energy. It's great to hear it, and I'm like, I also feel it, like it's also there.
Maybe for wrap up, seeing and honoring pain, because pain is, well, at least like from my personal perspective, and I think that for many it's a catapult to new forces, and it's a good way to dive into that, and I can see it in how many words we can put it, like in that feeling, and then it drives you to a catapult to make better things. So, gracias.
Gracias.
And I can also share something that can make me confident in our fights and stuff. Is that I travel really since a long time in not yet the entire world, but already like America, Africa a lot, all Europe, the little parts of Asia, and it's crazy to see how those questions, those one and these of the other page, there is a common sense and a common aspiration and common wishes for each other, and those common points are really universal, even in really different culture like Africa, or in the really bad American or what. In fact, no, humanity is just like wishing a bit the same everywhere you go, even if the culture is different or what. And this is really powerful, I think, because if we try to spread and share universal things, and discover that they are universal, you can really touch everybody, and so I have more power in your action and stuff like that, because you are just willing something that everybody wants, and that give me the confidence, make me confident in what we do,
Thank you for all your perspectives. Yeah, it is I think the principal struggle is how to constantly find this balance between the commonalities and the differences in struggles, and the commonalities in hope and differences in access, and thank you for contributing all of what you did, and the silence also. It's really touching, and I feel that I resonated so much when you said, let's do this all day, every day. I mean, but definitely more of that, and also to acknowledge that this is really deep work, and of course it needs more time than half an hour to connect in this. And so, maybe that's, as I would go back a little bit to the beginning, see these as also invitations. Whatever speaks to you and resonates, bring it on. Keep these conversations with the people you love or work with, or whatever makes sense, because this is not the end somehow, and it's not enough to just do it for half an hour, I think. But that's the space we have. It's more openings and what's possible. And it was already Richie brought it up, the paradox of, okay, what I'm concerned about is the same what I hope what will happen, and then this fire that is bringing energy, and this is also part of what's behind this part of honoring the pain in the work that reconnects, that it then also fuels to go forth
or I'm recently using this grow forth, because I think it's rather maybe like a more, not a linear process, but yeah, like this growing forth and seeing, okay, what is actually our role individually, collectively in making this what we hope for more likely, because nobody knows. And if somebody is like also like, I think it's heard it somewhere, it's not my sentence, but don't trust anybody who says that it will all be bad, or don't trust anybody who says that it will all be good, because nobody can know that. We don't know what will happen. It's more about how to learn to deal with the uncertainties and still have the hopes and do your part so that these hopes are more likely to happen. and that's the kind of active hope approach of really getting engaged. So this also brings to this pre-last section of the workshop, growing forth, yeah, there's also one exercise that I don't think we will have time for today, because I don't like urgency state, and so it just stays in your notebook. You will see what it is. It's about mapping the resources. The invitation is actually to find somebody you can do it together with, who asks you these questions, and they are about, okay, if there were no limitations, what would you do, and what are your inner resources already and outer, and what do you still need? So how it normally goes is that if we were in a couple, I would ask you these questions and you talk, and I would make the notes, so you're free to talk, and then I would feed it back to you. So you would do this, you have these resources, and try it with somebody if you want. It's just there as a proposal. We'll not do it here today. Partly because, yeah, not to get into the urgency modus, but partly also because I'm also quite hands-on, practical person, and I don't like, okay, one thing is to do this, but the other thing is also to plan, strategize, and then do shit. So I want to focus on something that is also in this notebook, and again, some of you who worked with me has already seen it, but then it works for many different things, and it's a tool that I gathered together from like inspired by different sources, then adding my own things from practice, and something that can help in planning action or this change that you want to see in the world. And I called it the action habitat. Yeah, so it's for starting an action or planning an action. And I will also send you an aftercare email after this with different more resources of what is mentioned already in the workbook, of what I mentioned around the lunch table, with some of what else is there that I found interesting. And invitation will be also for everyone to add to that list. So maybe we can even co-create like a growing resource lists together to inspire one another and for readings and stuff. That was a little side note. But the action habitat is kind of a process that can help, and it's not the right way to do an action, not at all. It's one tool that maybe is helpful how to get from what we want to do to actually doing that. And my proposal would be that we work with this a little bit here in the time that is left. But to go through it first, so you see this moss kind of figure there with all these steps, but then they're also in the next pages. So I mean, the first step is then, of course, like, okay, what do we actually feel like undertaking? And I'm guessing that's on what I know about some and several of you, is that you're already doing things, so you already have this calling. It's maybe not so much about finding this calling right here, right now, but thinking, okay, what is the next step? What am I trying to do? Is it a campaign? Is it a new thing that I'm trying to introduce in my work? Challenging structures in my with my co-workers and in the office is also activism. That's I firmly believe in that, changing these structures. So whatever, that's of course obviously the first step, like what's the action. Then the next step would be to think, okay, and target is really violent word, but it's there, so let's work with it. Yeah, who is actually the target, or who are we approaching with this action? So to say, who do we want to change, or what do we want to change exactly? And what are we asking them to change? Is it my colleagues? Is it the students? Is it the whatever, children, or is it institutions? Is it like really getting specific about who exactly we are asking to change and what we want them to change? So, and it's kind of like it's in this linear step 1, step 2, but that doesn't mean that you need to go through all of the steps, just see what is relevant for whatever action planning. So this point of intervention, and it's also a very interesting one and probably can be most visible when we talk about climate activism, because you really think of, okay, which is the point in this structure or relationships where we're trying to disrupt something or change something. So, so talking about, climate activism point of production would be to go and do actions at, let's say, factories of something that are producing something, or oil drills, or whatever it is that is in that point producing something, and do the change there. It can also be deciding to, okay, going to the point of destruction. Maybe it's where the forests are cut down. Maybe it's where whatever life is being life of more than humans is being killed. Anything else that is that kind of point, but getting specific. It can be point of consumption, doing something in supermarkets or just local shops or markets or online or wherever people are consumed, where we want to change them, what they consume, so to say. And of course, then the activities can look also very differently, but it's more like thinking about, okay, what are we strategically pointing at, and where are we trying to make this change? And then the ones that are more sometimes harder to pinpoint and think of, okay, how to actually enter there is these points of decision, assumptions, and ideas, like where you actually try to challenge some ideas that people have, or when they are about to make a decision, how can you swoosh in and offer another kind of option for a decision, whatever it is. I'm going to pause for a second if there's questions or something that you don't agree with, or to move on. Allies, finding your allies, and I think this workshop could potentially also be about that, to find, okay, who else could be there that I can partner up with. But this was something that I learned about from Jay Jordan, like a quite known climate activist that I worked with some years ago. And for me, this was eye-opening somehow. And when I still look at it, I should remember it more often. But like really thinking of, again, as it was of who do we are approaching and who do we want to change what, it's thinking, okay, who do we want to partner up with, and who can make our movement, our cause, our action stronger rather than weaker. Which means that, and what often happens is that, and it's not a bad thing, I'm not saying that, but like that we target all our energy to the ones who are thinking exactly the opposite of us, and we want to draw them into our circle and think like we are. And it's really exhausting. It's most of the time doesn't work. It's also really polarizing, as we see in many debates around. So it's rather thinking how to, okay, who are the ones that support the change that I want to make or we want to make, but are not ready to take the actions. And it's much easier to get the people on board like this, who already believe in the cause, but just don't know what to do, are afraid to act. I don't know, many different reasons for this, but then you can work with this. Okay, if you don't know what to do, here we have, like, you can print this poster, go here, you can send this petition, you can help me and go talk to your neighbors, I don't know, whatever it is, then you can give these tools. Or if people are afraid to do, then actually talk about, okay, what's the fear? How can we move through it together? But it's these like passive allies. And I didn't mention the active allies, but those are probably the ones who are already in your movement, in your organization, the ones that see the change they want to see and are also ready to do whatever it takes to do that. But then then they're the ones who are like could go either way. It's, I think, when we talk about like elections and politics, that's always there's this conversation about who could vote this or this. So how can we drag them? And this language I'm using is also pretty horrible. But so to us and them and so on. But yeah, to think of okay, who are there who actually don't have an opinion about this, but they're also not necessarily, how to say, hostile against whatever we think the change might be happen. Can we engage in conversations? Can we build relationships, connections, find a way of partnering up? And then there comes the opposition part, and there's the ones that are like don't believe in our opposes change, but will also not, so to say, as we say in Latvia, will not put the branches in the wheels, so to say. Maybe there's something to work with. And then, of course, the hardest to get on the same page with is the ones who are both opposing the change you want to see and are also ready to act. So this is just as a reminder to think of who is around and how we can build relationships and where does the cycle of energy kind of not leak out. Did you ask some people to talk with you also? Or start with the participants after the workshop or the next?
But it's not yet started.
Then you tell me. It's also what's coming up, and I actually really like these, but more like for you in your collective or with the people who you do certain activist work with, yeah. So you talk from the personal and struggles with confidence and taking up too much space and this, there's things happening in Denmark.
That was all from Tools for Change and Institute for X. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe we'll see each other next time.